Learning to love outlining changed my writing forever. And I want the same for you. If you keep writing stories that don't go anywhere, or if you dread the editing process because you have no idea how to wrangle your wild mess into something cohesive, you're going to need an outline. But before we continue, let me just get one thing straight. If you like making things up as you go and you want to write and you can write without having any idea of your plot before you start writing, and it actually works for you, it helps you finish writing your stories, and it produces stories that your readers love, great! Keep doing that. If you want tips for panthers, go watch someone else's content. I'm going to talk about the stuff that I actually know about. There's literally no need to consume educational content just to comment, nah, I'm not going to do that. And I'm sorry, I think I've just had one weird Pinterest comment too many this week alone. But anyway, if you're new here, hi, I'm Katri, I'm your new writing bestie, and this is Protagonist Crafts, the place for people who are kind of obsessed with that whole writing thing. So this video is about what you've got wrong about outlining and about the misconceptions that people seem to have about it. And like I already said, I didn't used to be an outliner. I was in the camp of, oh, if I know what's going to happen in my story, I'm never going to finish it. Well, you know what? I didn't finish those stories either where I didn't know what was going to happen. So clearly that wasn't working for me. Some of these misconceptions have been inspired by content I've seen on Instagram and some just by comments that I've been getting in my blog. So here's misconception number 1. Outlining is inherently uncreative. I'm sure you've heard it before. I like following my creativity and seeing where my characters take me, and writing without a plan is a truly creative process for me. It's nice that you feel that way about your writing, but here's the thing. When you've got an outline, where do you think it comes from? Do people buy them from Walmart? Do they get them from me? No. How is creating the outline also not creative? That's just like, I'm really having a difficult time wrapping my mind around that concept. And again, if you feel differently, great. But for me, it's like if I just started writing something, I would feel really stifled by like, oh, I need to get this right, because otherwise I will have wasted all these pages I've been writing. I've written 500 500 pages, and I just realized I've gone wrong, but I need to stay the course because I started writing this way. And then like outlining and plotting in advance, it's like, oh, I've got all these opportunities, like all these options. I want to try this, and where would this go? I'm like, no, maybe not that. Let's go that way, or let's do that. And what if this and this happened instead? There's just nothing uncreative about that. And I guess what annoys me the most about this kind of content is like trying to make the other people look less creative. And it's just like, that's completely needless. And maybe the dumbest take that I've seen is that stories that have been outlined, that they're somehow less creative. And it's like, why? Why would they be? And like I said, when I was describing my own process, actually they could be more creative. Because you will spend more time thinking like, okay, well, what if this happened? And what if that happened? And I guess people who think of outlining as this like boring, uncreative process is that they think that you need to go from like chapter 1 and proceed, in order to the end. And that's your outline forever, instead of just having this creative process of connecting the dots and figuring out what else would happen, what would be surprising, and how does all this work together. So yeah, if you see outlining as that kind of like a boring thing that is then set in stone forever, then yes, that does sound boring, but that isn't just like, why would you outline that way anyway? But let's move on to misconception number 2. Outlining makes writing boring. Like, yeah, maybe you do feel this way, and I'm not going to try to contest your personal feelings and say that you're wrong, but I would just want to question, why do you feel that way? And if you're one of those people, like what I used to be when I didn't finish writing anything, that you're like, well, if I already know what happens in my story, I won't want to write it. Like, why? Don't you like writing? Why did you come up with a story that doesn't excite you? Why don't you want to write the story that you've already planned? Do you like the discovery more than you like the actual writing of it? I'm not saying that any of that is true, but I would just question that, like, why? Why is this true for me? Hey, maybe that's just how you feel. And again, I'm not trying to say that those aren't like completely valid feelings that you have. I'm genuinely curious. So please tell me in the comments if you're one of those people who find writing a story that you already know so terribly boring that you can't do it. How do you edit your stories? You've already written them, you know what happens. How do you manage, doing the editing process if that is the case? Just please, this is the thing that like baffles me the most. Like maybe you don't edit your stories, but yeah, that's totally fine if you're writing for fun. But I think my content is about like writing novels that we want to publish, whether that's traditional publishing or self-publishing. But just like if that's your goal, then you're going to have to edit. How do you manage the editing process if knowing your story is so terribly boring that you can't write it if you know it? Again, I am genuinely curious. Please tell me. This kind of stuff is what keeps me up at night. Okay. And then the misconception number 3 is there's just one way to outline a novel. So I just recently saw these types of comments like, oh yes, I love writing without an outline. I don't plan anything. I completely fly by the seat of my pants. Not pants. Yes, seat of my pants. But yeah, I do have some ideas of characters and settings and got some plot events figured out a little. But no, I don't have an outline. I just completely make it up as I go. It's like, ma'am, that's an outline. I just find it a little disingenuous that people are like, oh yes, writing without a plan, it's great. I'm never planning anything in advance when they be planning. They've got an outline. Oh, it's only inside your head? Well, where do you think the outline that ends up on the paper comes from? Also from inside the head. It makes no difference. You've planned your story, you have an outline. Again, the people who do have like bigger outlines or whatever you think that an outline is supposed to look like, they didn't buy it from Walmart. It also came from their head. So if you did some kind of planning before you started writing, you are not improvising, you are not completely pantsing it. A cohesive summary of your entire plot could be an outline, but it's not the only way to outline. Actually, I would personally find doing that quite boring and my brain just doesn't work that way. Having a comprehensive scene list and structuring each scene, that could be an outline, but it's not the only way to outline. This isn't school, so it's just very silly to think that only one kind of outline counts as an outline, or that if you wanted to outline, then you would have to stick to this specific type. No. Bullet points on a napkin, that's an outline. A timeline made of entirely of pictures, also an outline. Also being like, hey, what if this thing happened and then it led to this? And then the character would have to do X without Y because Z. And then purple because green. That's a very loose plan, but it's a plan regardless. So don't make the mistake of thinking there's only one way to outline your story. You can use any kind of method that works for your unique brain. I have lots of outlining tools in my Etsy shop and generally just a lot of tips in my blog, so check out the description for links. And if you just realized that, yes, you have been outlining this entire time, it's okay. You didn't actually need to be one of those cool pantsers who just make it all up because they're so creative. You're already creative and your outline is very, very cool. You created it. And the misconception number 4, the final one, is having an outline means having everything planned out to the T. This is kind of related to the previous point, but it deserves its own point. Nobody says that you need to know everything about your story before you start writing in order for you to have an outline. If you think that's what outlining means, then you are the one saying that. Why? Why are you saying that? That's completely pointless. So here's apparently a very revolutionary thought. You could have all the major plot events of your story planned out so that you have an actually cohesive plot that keeps your readers reading, that stays interesting, doesn't, go like that in the middle. And then you could leave whatever happens between these exciting events for you to figure out later when you're writing your first draft. Maybe you only figure out some of them in the second draft. That's also okay. I've seen some people call this a hybrid method, but I just call it having an outline. I'm sorry if that ruins your pantser brand. And you could come and argue with me about it in the comments, but I would prefer it that you would just go and write instead. And you don't even need to take my word for it, because here's the dictionary definition of the word outline: a general description or plan showing the essential features of something but not the details. So there you've got it. That's an outline. So let me know in the comments what kind of outlines you like creating for your own projects. And if you'd like an easy way to outline your next story, you should definitely get my free simple plotter. And I will see you in another video.